Peking Opera, also referred to as Pingju or Jingxi in Chinese, considered as the greatest heritage and Chinese national treasure with a history of more than 200 years. Having incorporated various elements of opera including the performance art from the royal family, the Peking Opera was formed and reached its peak in Beijing. Combining singing, dancing and martial art performance, the Peking Opera is the most influential art form in China history. In this video, we will go through to the history of Peking Opera, its elements and details, and the future of Peking Opera in China. Let's get started. The year 1790 marked a watershed in the history of the art form, including Peking Opera, or known as Beijing Opera. To celebrate the Qianlong Emperor Actian's birthday, several opera troupes came from Anhui province performed in Beijing. The shows were highly successful and the art began to attract patrons and audiences in the capital and evolved traits that eventually distinguish opera of the capital from other types, which is now known as Peking Opera. During the final decades of the 19th century, the Dowager Empress Cixi was a notable supporter of Beijing Opera. She had special palace opera theatres built to indulge her interest in the art. This opera continued to attract attention in the decades between the end of Emperor rule in 1912 and the founding of the People's Republic of China. One of the popular actors in this era is Mei Lanfang. He performed in Japan, America and Europe, and some of his work was filmed and specialized in playing young women and was celebrated for embodying these roles perfectly, which he and Peking Opera get recognition from the Western countries. The policies of the Cultural Revolution included the transformation of Beijing Opera into a strictly limited number of approved model plays, which they need conveying appropriate political message. Finally, during the open door policy, Beijing Opera regained some of its former luster with a wide variety of plays being performed, and it garnered some official governmental support and got popular worldwide until today. Now, let's learn about the details of this opera. Beijing Opera or Peking Opera is often classified according to its age and content. Thus, there are traditional plays, newly edited traditional plays, new plays, and the model plays of the Cultural Revolution. Because traditional Beijing opera are derived from Chinese history, legend, or myth, Chinese audiences are typically familiar with the event portrayed. The Monkey King and the king bids farewell to his favorite concubine were among the most famous traditional plays. Continue to the roles, costume, and makeup. There are four main types of roles in Beijing Opera, and each of it has several different subsets differentiated by age and personality. The first one is male Sheng. The male Sheng characters categorized by age and profession often have some sort of beard and relatively naturalistic facial coloring. Second, painted face male called Jing. Jing characters are powerful men, sometimes even supernaturally so. The color using in Jing makeup have specific connotation. For example, red indicates loyalty and bravery. This is the character reserved for army general, warrior, official, or bandits. The third one is female or called Dan. Roles fall into groups such as King Yi, Wu Dan, and Lao Dan. And the last one is clown or called Chou. The characters are identified by a patch of white in the center of the face. Costume is stylized rather than lifelike. Just as pennon or flag worn on the back indicate a martial role, extremely long white sleeves are worn by upper status men and women. Skillful manipulation of this water sleeve is an art itself. In terms of instrumental music, generally it falls into two groups, which are civilians or wenchang and martial called wuchang. In terms of its scenery, no matter the venue, Beijing Opera scenery is likely to be no more than a carpet, a few chairs, and perhaps a table and cloth. Peking Opera performers and audience use their imagination to envision a room suggested only by a table or a few chairs or perhaps a mountainside. Performers usually engage in elaborate acrobatic feats and or dance during the course of the opera to delight the audiences. While for mime portion of opera include actions such as opening and closing door, all done in a stylized, recognizable fashion. Peking Opera has long been regarded as one of the most essential means of explaining traditional Chinese culture. With China's economic progress and increased international contact, more Westerners have traveled to China to learn the Peking Opera and have even performed it in English. A documentary series, 100 Mission Peking Opera, chronicles the journey of a Western man learning the opera. Also, other Peking Opera enthusiasts have traveled to China to learn the art form and compete in popular talent shows on Central China television. Ghaffar Porazar from the United Kingdom moved to China at the age of 32 to learn the intricacies of the Peking Opera. He was one of the first Westerners to complete the National Academy of Traditional Chinese Opera rigorous training program. He has established himself as a pioneer in the field of performance, introducing the theatrical art form to the Western countries. He changed the Monkey King to more of a Western musical to better connect with a Western audience for people who find the Peking Opera a jarring and unintelligible combination of sound. The impact of Beijing Opera can also be recognized in martial arts. The greatest influence on martial arts as represented on film is undoubtedly Peking Opera, or more precisely Chinese opera, as martial arts film choreography pulls from various regional Chinese opera traditions. The most cited Chinese opera impact on Hong Kong cinema is Yu Jim Yuen, founder of the China Drama Academy, a Peking opera school in Hong Kong that trained future stars such as Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung Kambo, and Yuan Biao. Today, Peking Opera faces the impact from other art forms such as ballet, Western opera, and has been largely marginalized by the introduction of television, film, and the internet. In addition, even for standard Chinese speakers, it might be difficult to understand the art form content if they have not had much experience with Peking Opera. To pique the nation's younger generation interest in traditional culture, including Peking Opera, the Chinese government has undertaken a series of efforts. In recent years, Peking Opera and other traditional culture endeavors have found their way into campus classrooms as a means of preserving the art. There are initiatives by the Chinese director to appeal the Peking Opera's element in the online series and variety show to cater the taste of younger generation. Winter Begonia, an online series, show the exquisite costume, accessories, and the artistic scenes of Peking Opera. Also, the Peking Opera troupe themselves tried to keep the opera alive by making some changes and uncovered new methods of promoting Peking Opera. For example, through applying digital technology and taking to social media to be appealed to younger generation. More and more young people are attracted by the charm of this traditional performing art, as they take increasing pride in traditional culture along with China development and having a growing sense of responsibility to inherit this performing art. Due to the COVID-19 epidemic in early 2020, many Peking Opera shows got cancelled, resulting in financial pressure for both performers and Peking Opera Company. In a bid to make up for losses suffered during this year's Spring Festival, the China National Peking Opera Court launched an online performance season using 5G and digital technology. To summarize, originated from the southern Anhui and eastern Hubei, Peking Opera became popular after the celebration of the Qianlong Emperor Axian birthday in Beijing. Throughout the generations, we can see how the China efforts in preserving the Peking Opera and have its influence in the martial arts and Western countries. Personally, any culture, including the Peking Opera, needs to follow the world progression in terms of its promotion and production, while maintaining its purity and essence. For Peking Opera, even though there is only a small percentage of Chinese people are interested in Peking Opera, Chinese has such a vast population. Even a small fraction of Chinese citizens means a comparatively large number of people, which we can say that we can be positive about Beijing Opera future. That's all from this video. Thank you for listening and Assalamualaikum.